This week's parasha is called Shemini, which means eighth, and it was written by Mauricio Quintero. Shemini is the culmination of several portions read in Shemot. In Terumah, God reveals to Moses a pattern detailing the ark, the menorah, the table, and the structure of the Mishkan, which is a divine pattern that emerges to shape what was inaugurated here in Shemini. Next, in Tetzaveh, the service and the priestly garments, the garments of the Kohanim, are discussed. Aaron's garments, his role as a Kohen, and the elements are introduced that will be used in the service, such as oil, incense, etc. Here, the level rises from the physical plane, hamakom, the place, to the level of how the person who will serve before God and the people should present themselves, about who they are and how they should serve. Ki Tisa recounts the rupture caused by the golden calf, when a service not ordained by God was offered, resulting in the death of some of the people. This crisis led Moses to break the commandments, suggesting that any spiritual manifestation without instruction or framework leads to deviation, ultimately resulting in death. Vayachel depicts the start of the construction of the tabernacle, with the contribution of all the materials as offerings. The emphasis was not on the materials, but rather on the generosity of the people, to the point that Moses had to ask them to stop giving. Some contributed materials, others their creativity, others their skilled labor. And now Israel is united by one task: to carry out the work entrusted to Moses in Terumah. Now spirituality descends to a practical level. In Pekudei, the Mishkan is finished, everything done according to God's command. And the climax was that the glory of God filled the Mishkan, filled the void. Again, the emphasis was not on the building itself. That is, the fruit of obedience with humility is the manifestation of the divine presence. Let me repeat that again. The fruit of obedience coupled with humility results in the manifestation of the divine presence. The Mishkan alone is meaningless. Man and the divine presence must interact. And this can't happen if they live in separate worlds. So the chosen meeting place became the focal point where God, who is omnipresent, chose to manifest himself. And now man would have the opportunity to draw near to God. Man cannot be everywhere, which is why God gave him a place. But to be able to draw near properly, God designed the korbanot, the offerings, for those who wish to approach in a structured way, thus defining the system of offerings. Now that there are people who wish to draw near to God in his house, there have to be, for the sake of order and structure, those who could receive them and guide them so that their offerings are presentable before God. So in Tzav, instructions are given to the priests, to Aaron and his sons, who were consecrated for 7 days, having received precise instructions on how to carry out the service. Here's the timeline. Terumah is in the month of Shivan at Mount Sinai. 40 days later, on the 17th day of Tammuz, occurs the incident of the golden calf. God forgives us. And on Yom Kippur, Tishrei 10, he gives us the second set of tablets. The Mishkan is subsequently built between Tishrei and Adar. And on the 1st of Nisan, after 7 days of consecration, Shemini occurs. Some scholars estimate that 9 to 10 months have passed between the delivery of the design and this day of inauguration, underscoring the fact that it was a sublime day for everyone, a day of great anticipation. It's like a birth 9 months later, a wonderful depiction of a gestation cycle in which the pregnancy is at its end and everyone is awaiting the moment of birth. But on the day when the most awesome spiritual climax that this world has ever seen should have happened, instead, misfortune occurs. The portion states that Nadav and Abihu presented Eish Zara Asher Lo Tziva Otam, strange fire that was not commanded to them. The consequence, the result? Death, sadness, and the pain of their father Aaron, family separation, feelings conflicting with the joy of spirituality and the awe of the divine presence. The structure of the passage describes the inauguration of the priestly service, with Moses instructing Aaron on how to execute it. God manifests himself, accepting the offering, creating a unique moment of connection between the human and the divine. And then something happens that spoils the celebration. Aaron's sons offer a strange fire, and a divine fire then consumes them. Next, God indicates that the Kohanim cannot appear before him under the influence of wine. And then God establishes dietary restrictions for Israel that will set them apart, kadosh, holy, from the other nations. But what is all this really about? I believe all the sections deal with the same central theme. Closeness to God is the most glorious thing a human being can experience. But it also requires delicacy. That is, not every spiritual impulse is right or good. Rather, intentions must be conscious and ordered. Our holiness must be accompanied by structure, not spontaneity. I remember when I was a young man, I used to have very intense spiritual experiences, to the point that I lost physical awareness of time, space, and location, experience in which I would lose control, supposedly speaking in angelic tongues, where I would fall on the ground in spiritual ecstasy. Being Pentecostal became addictive after coming from the exactitudes of Roman Catholicism, where the Spirit did not flow freely. Later, when I turned to a more mystical path, I also found that seeking profound spiritual experiences through Gnosticism and meditation was very powerful. But was that what really God ordained? I understand that many of us want to experience spirituality outside of ritual, of a siddur, the repetitive seeming coldness of prayer, and the temptation of extrasensory offerings that exist in the spiritual world today. Again, I believe the problem with spirituality is that without a framework or structure, it can lead to consequences like the one in this passage. In the Haftarah portion in 2 Samuel 6, we read that King David was transporting the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem on a cart. The ark almost fell, and to prevent it from hitting the ground, Uzzah, quite innocently and with sincerity or reverence of heart, reached out to stop it from falling. What was the result? Uzzah died instantly, apparently from an unordained act of approaching the divine. Again, that pattern ended in tragedy. It seems this pattern repeats itself. The spiritual world requires order. In an example of high voltage power line, the question arises, is energy good or bad? The classic answer, well, it depends. For energy to be channeled properly, it requires a containment system, a cable. If we expose ourselves to pure, direct energy, the result is disastrous. But if we approach it in a protected way, with gloves and specialized equipment, the result is positive, bringing electricity into our homes and helping us in our daily lives. So the question is, how do we approach divine energy? In a world that wants to live without rules, without order, it's now almost unthinkable to structure how to approach God. In the Mishkan, a fire rose like a pillar at night, providing light, heat, and protection. But we also read that a fire struck down Nadav and Abihu. God wants us to relate to him in closeness, but with limits, with awareness, not drunkenness, with structure, that is order. It's not about distancing ourselves, it's about drawing closer in an appropriate manner. The name Nadav comes from the root meaning to offer voluntarily or spontaneous generosity. That is an energy that is potentially uncontained. And Avihu means he is my father, or my father is he, or God, implies intimate closeness. When we put them together, they're extremely elevated. Spiritual spontaneity, Nadav, and intimacy with God, Avihu. But this intensity may have led to the presentation of a fire not ordained by God. In contrast, Eleazar, which means God has helped me, or God is my help, and Itamar, which means islands of palm trees or a place of stability, Eleazar and Itamar remain alive. That is, in balance. Something similar happened to their father, Aaron, with the golden calf. He endorsed a religious expression not ordained by God. That is, spirituality without clear instruction, a kind of strange fire. The result? Death. We learn then that not all closeness to God is valid because it is intense or sincere. We require instruction, limits, and form. So how do I know if I'm offering strange fire to God? How creative can I be in my relationship with God? I think it's a gray area. But first we must understand that the Torah is our framework and that there are explicit commandments that we cannot change and are not subject to our personal interpretation, such as, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not murder. A man shall not have sexual relations with another man, and so on. These are commandments that leave no room for interpretation. Then there can be reinterpretations that don't eliminate the original commandment, but rather expand on it within a framework to make it more practical for today. For example, when Yeshua said, you shall not murder, but if you have destructive anger, if you hold that anger in your heart, then it's already as if you're murdering. You shall not commit adultery, meaning in a physical sense. But if you desire another man's wife in your heart, you're already committing adultery. Or you shall love your neighbor, including your enemy. The interpretation complements rather than changes the original commandment. Second, it comes with humility. So it allows itself to be examined and validated by others. Third, it is sustainable over time. The dangers today are that there are people whose spirituality is an experience in which they feel it's right, so it's right. Others seek to skip processes, such as not implementing the prescribed fire and seeking a new formula. Third, intensity, but without structure. As I said before, I spoke in tongues, but honestly, I didn't even understand what I was saying, and I had no self-awareness. It was a very powerful experience, but it had no foundation. The result of living under high levels of spiritual sensation made me unstable. After coming out of intense spiritual experience, I felt that I would no longer make the same mistakes that troubled me, because I was like a kind of Saint Mauricio. However, the reality was that 10 minutes after leaving that state of ecstasy, I would find myself repeating the same mistakes, which led me to the feelings of frustration and guilt. In other words, I lacked stability. Shemini, the eighth, implies something that is beyond nature, where a cycle is broken, where there is transcendence. It's like saying in the first 7 days the Mishkan was made, and in the 8th, God was manifested. It moves from what humans are capable of, number 7, to the experience where the divine breaks through, number 8. What do we learn then? That there are 2 levels of spiritual life. One level where there is matter, system, order, and discipline, and another level where there is the presence of God, spiritual intensity and transcendence, and that if we don't enter properly, it can end up in tragedy. In closing, all the portions from Terumah to Shemini corrected the error of the golden calf, which wasn't simply idolatry. It was trying to approach God without waiting for or respecting the proper channels. In Terumah, God corrects us from freely inventing forms, giving us an exact model for the Mishkan. In Tetzaveh, God corrects the notion that anyone can do it, defining the roles of the Aaronic priesthood and giving structure to the service. In Kitisa, he exposes the problem, showing us impulsive spirituality, impatience, and the need for something tangible. The problem is that humans want to control the divine. In Vayachel, he corrects intentions. The people gave toward the building of the Mishkan, while in the making of the calf, everyone gave, but toward destruction. Here we learn that generosity, when channeled correctly, does not overflow in the wrong direction. In Pekudei, he corrects the implementation because everything was done as God commanded, or as he commanded Moses. In Vayikra, he corrects the approach, giving us clear rules for the korbanot, the offerings. Approach properly. In Tzav, he corrects the preparation, giving 7 days of training. There's discipline before acting. Emotion does not replace training. The final tests occur in Shemini, when the true divine presence manifests. Here, Nadav and Avihu fail in an unordered spiritual initiative, which is immediately corrected by the release of divine fire. My wish, and I'm speaking for Mauricio's wish is that God manifests himself to each of us in the personal way that each of us need to feel and to live our spirituality, but that we do so at the right time, with the right intention, and within the right framework so that we may bear much fruit. Shabbat Shalom. Mauricio, your message was absolutely wonderful. I know you have to leave. So if you have any words that you want to give us before you go, I'm so grateful for this message. It's a beautiful one. May the whole world hear it.
Oh, thank you. Um, you know, um, today people is searching God, I believe. And everyone is looking for spirituality because there is in the spiritual world there is a balance. Okay, when the light comes, then comes darkness. Okay, because it's a dual world. When good comes, bad things comes also. So uh, and when the spirituality comes, then material and and things that uh, is not a spirituality also comes. So today we are in a world that people from one side it doesn't care about the spirituality. They can see that the spirituality is a lack of time. They live all the days looking for personal experiences, looking for making money, looking for, you know, living the daily day.
That's
Okay,
their spirituality. God, the golden calf, is their
the
God.
golden calf,
Yeah,
yeah, materiality,
right,
materiality.
right.
So, and then also there are many people that there is a spark of divine light inside of them that is calling them. Okay,
Right, right.
Eh, and that is why people is looking for spirituality and they are searching spirituality in what the senses gives for
Right,
them.
right.
In yeah, the senses are good. I mean, God put senses in us, uh, so we can experience. But in the divine plan, there is no sense, okay, at
Mm,
all. So what God start to speak to us here, not see, not touch, not feel, the, do not feel in your heart, okay? Don't cry. So it's just here, obedience, and then act, okay? So, but everyone starts to to give um, an explanation to what they hear, and they start to be creative with God. So, in the risk of this is that we are not going to the fountain, to the foundation, which is the Torah. We start to search in experiences. And the problem with experiences is the emotions. Emotions are not stable. Today there is a peak high, and the other day you are at the bottom of the of a hole. So in that doesn't give stability to the spirituality. So sometimes you are very close to God, the next day you don't feel so close to God. In the way to approach to God, because God wants that we close to Him, is just through the obedience, humility. Okay. And when you start to practice this, you start to practice the love of your neighbors, the love of yourself, the love to God. And and then the rest of the procedures of spirituality talking uh, are not so important. It's not the central part. But the problem is that people they thought, oh, what is important is to present this animal, for example. Oh, I need to present the mincha, but the mincha doesn't mean nothing to God. He created all the birds, for example. He created all the floor. He creates everything. So he doesn't care about the things that are material. The point was the heart, how people come close to God. In this portion made me think about how many times I approached to God in not an ordained way, in not an ordained form that He commanded me. Okay, because I put so creative with God that honestly I made a lot of mistakes. Okay, I interpret spirituality when there is nothing. Okay, so and then I was looking for extrasensorial, uh, pleasantness for myself because I felt good, and I always in everything was about how I felt, so it was about me, not about him. Okay, in when I wrote these words, it's true. I come from a Catholic Roman family. Then my father's changed to a Christian Pentecostal church. And the problem with the Pentecostal is that they believe that the Spirit, that living by the Spirit is living by the experiences of spiritual things. Oh, I can touch here and you fall down to the floor, and you start to feel ecstasy and a statement of rest. In so in what happened, honestly, when I read this portion, I acted like a drunk person. In because why? Because a drunk person doesn't have the capability to control himself. If you are drunk, I remember once or twice in my life I was drunk, and honestly, I made a lot of things that I felt today ashamed of
Mm.
because for example, one time I was in a restaurant and I started to dance to a table, and I fall down before many people. But I was so happy that I go to another table to keep dancing. So, uh, so when I am not like that,
But what do you
that I
think?
was
What do you think that spirituality is? What causes you? What, like, because I was involved with the New Age and there are many experiences like that. What is that then?
because you know is I put that word that is addictive. Okay, it's an addiction. You interpret spirituality like to be drunk because there is some glandules you say in English,
Glands,
like glands,
glands.
yeah, yeah, in your brain that activate with this spiritual. extrasensorial feelings.
Endorphins.
Yeah, and buffering. So that is a chemical process in you,
Ah,
and then you are searching again and again and again. And
right.
every time is the experience is higher, 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 but also after that moment, the experience is that you go down, very down, 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 down. So I asked to myself, for example, I don't know if you remember uh, Jimmy Swaggart, I believe
Yeah.
was
Yes.
his name. Okay.
Yeah.
Jimmy Swaggart was a very evangelical person who convert many people.
Charismatic, very charismatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this man, uh, I believe that honestly, he was a very sincere person before God. He wants to live under God's will.
Hmm.
Sorry, what's his name
But
again?
Jimmy Swaggart.
Oh, Swag. Yes, yes, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
but what happened to him from the
Hmm.
high spiritual sense, sensorial? Uh, what happened to him? He went to prostitutes. Okay,
Because they separate the spiritual and the physical.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in the problem is that yes, a lot of experiences are good, and honestly, for example, I remember after being praying 3 hours, for example, when I was youth, I saw myself and I can see how shine, how my face was shining.
Yeah.
So I felt like I am walking in the air. But
Yeah.
what happened 10 minutes after? I saw a girl before me, and my eyes and my mind was completely out of my spiritual senses, and I descended to the bottom of of my heart. So
Wow. Hmm.
so in I was like, oh, why I cannot be stable? I was not capable to be stable because I didn't learn that is not about my experience. The experience is for my body. Okay. The experience must be substituted by the
Hmm.
obedience. Okay.
Right.
Must be substituted because of humbleness to say, oh Lord, searching me.
Yes.
Okay. It's not about shouting. It's not about, um, touching persons to so I can heal the persons.
Hmm.
No, it's not about that. You know, uh, that is why Yeshua, I believe, he said, "Do not be like these Pharisees that they pray in public places to be seen,
Hmm.
high spirituality, because that is his their reward, that everybody can see, oh, how spiritual is this guy." Okay, rather go inside your room
Hmm.
and pray to your Father
Yeah.
alone.
Right.
Okay, nobody can see you.
Mm.
Okay, because that is humility.
Hmm.
So in I know it's very hard to express, but Nadavi and Abihu, probably because the Torah doesn't say explicit what happened.
Hmm.
Okay, but um, but for me, they put creative.
They put
Probably
what?
they did creative, creative
Creative?
person, creative person. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, because for me, they didn't really want to present a strange fire before God. It's like Usa. When you see what
Right.
happened to Usa,
Yeah.
he doesn't really disrespect the Aaron, the Ark
No.
of God.
Right.
He wanted to protect, okay, as well probably as Nadab and Abihu. They didn't want to offend God, okay. It's just that they went to, and that is the complement idea, is that you cannot be creative when God has explicit tell you what to do.
Right.
Okay. So, for example, if the Torah said do not steal, for example, I cannot start to argue to twist the possibility that something that is stillness is something approved by God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for example, okay, why is not good to accept money from drug dealers to give, for example, to a synagogue?
Right.
Yeah, you can say, oh, but you are not stealing. And I'm gonna tell you, yes, you are stealing. You are stealing because when you sell drugs to that family, to that person, you are stealing the money to them. You are stealing the healthy
Their health and their
of the
life.
health,
Yeah.
and also you are stealing the life of that person. That
Right.
is why to sell drugs is not being seen good by God.
Right.
So so then that is why you cannot take that money
Right.
and bring it, for example, to a synagogue.
Yeah. You're
Why?
trying to buy
Because
favor.
yeah, you're trying to buy favor. And also when you accept that, you are stealing, you are part of stealing. So
Right.
if you present that, then you are honestly breaking a commandment.
Right.
So you cannot twist that. You cannot say, oh, but but I'm converting this stealing money or this bad money into a good deeds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, it doesn't work like that.
No.
And it's very sad, for example, how in Mexico, how many churches, how many spiritual centers have accepted money from the drug dealers, for
Right.
example.
Right.
And so, and this is just an example, okay? So we cannot, you cannot say, oh God, I'm gonna be creative. I'm gonna break this commandment, okay? And another thing, for example, um, Yeshua, when he said, if you love your neighbor, but I'm gonna tell you that even your enemy, and that is written in the Torah. Why? Because it says, when there is an enemy of you and you can see this animal on the
Mm-hmm.
street,
Yeah.
you have to pick them up. You have to feed that animal. You have to care that animal, and you have to return it back to your enemy.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you feel good or feel bad about that enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So the animal at the end doesn't have the problem that you have a problems between your enemy and you. But what happened to you? Okay, when you love your neighbor, oh, I'm gonna love my wife. Okay, I'm gonna love my kids. But Yeshua said, and I tell you, also love your enemy. He's not changing the Torah. He's just adding something to give to reinterpret, and also he's taking something else from other part of the Torah and put it in a practical way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, for example, today, oh, I'm gonna smoke. I have seen so many Jew people smoking and vaping. Okay, it's incredible how many people use this. And you can say, oh, the Torah doesn't say that. Okay, in the Torah there is not a commandment that says, do not smoke Marlboro. Okay, it doesn't say that. Yeah, it's true, doesn't say that. But the Torah teaches us to love ourselves.
Right.
Okay, and if you love yourself, so you won't smoke.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is interpretation. But as I mentioned, there are many things that you cannot interpret. Nadav and Abihu were into a 7 days uh, intense training. Okay, 7 days. So they knew exactly how to perform that incense, what to offer, how to wear proper clothing, and things like that. So they were not at all an ignorant person.
Right.
They knew exactly what to present,
Mm.
but they decide to change something. What exactly, we don't know. But because of that, God decides to fire them.
Right.
And it's interesting, the corpses did not burn. They were not ashes, okay? Because they took the bodies entirely
With their
perfect,
clothes.
preserved with a cloth.
Yeah.
Okay, why God decided not to burn the clothes? Because the clothes were already sanctified.
Right.
Okay, so they took them out of the camp. That's another order of God. Before God, you cannot be a dead person,
Right.
and that is why He took. In God then it seems that is an unfair position of God decide to keep Aaron and Itamar and
Yeah.
and
Eleazar.
Eleazar at the service. Keep going in the service. Okay, I cannot. So it is like Uzzah. If you read, for example, it says that David, when he saw that Uzzah died, he get anger because it's God is like you are not very fair because we are looking into in a human terms. But the point is not to offer something that God has not commanded.
Right.
So the answer to find God and to say, oh, I am looking in the good way, I am doing something good and things like that is the three things. One is the Torah approved? The second one, do I feel good if I tell to somebody else what I'm doing? I am happy to be questioned by others, okay?
Mm.
Because that is a problem today.
Mm-hmm.
When someone is doing something that is not right, when somebody asks why you are doing that,
Mm-hmm.
that question burns that person inside
Mm-hmm.
and provokes something bad. And the
Interesting.
third thing is um, the third thing is that on time can last the practice. Okay. For example, today we make a lot of things that are not written in the Torah, but during the whole times, for example, it has been preserved. Okay. Um, things like um, eh, for example, Hanukkah, for example. Hanukkah is not written in the Torah, it's a tradition,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But how many years during the time we have celebrate Hanukkah, okay? So it's something probably not written in the Torah, but it's something good,
Mhm.
okay, approved by God,
Mhm.
and that it makes sense. Teach us something. It's like the rabbi said, if the traditions makes you grow, then follow it. There's no problem. Okay.
Mhm.
And so that is what I wanted to add.
Brilliant. Thank you so
And,
much.
and 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 also it's very interesting about what we were talking at the beginning, because I will be the godfather of the coins. Okay. It's interesting that there are 13 coins. Okay. So it's very nice because of the wedding. Ahava is 13 and Echad is 13.
15, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was looking at that, I said, "Oh God," and I can speak about that when I because I have to give
A little talk.
a little talk.
Yeah.
Okay, so uh, and that is important. The
Beautiful.
importance is not really the money, because money
Right.
comes and goes. Okay, sometimes you are up or down,
Yeah.
but if there is God and love, then the money will be enough, no
It's like
matter
the
if it's few or it's a lot.
it's like the
Okay,
Pidyon Haben. The Pidyon Haben
yeah,
is the redeeming of the firstborn son. He gives
yeah,
coins. Yeah.
yeah.
It's probably where
So
they get it
probably.
from.
Yeah, probably is where they get it from.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
Drive
have to leave.
carefully. Drive
Thank you.
carefully and have a wonderful time. Thank you for that message, Mauricio. Very
Okay,
appreciated.
well, thank
Ciao,
you.
ciao.
Bye bye.
Bye. So, Miriam, do you have something
Um,
you want to add?
well, just not much to add to that.
Yeah.
The idea, I think, the way I see it, is that just by being human, it's so easy, even if we love God and our intentions are to serve God, it's so easy to get our focus on ourselves more than on God. So
Tell
when
me about it.
Mauricio was saying
Yeah.
about being slain in the spirit and all those
Mhm.
things, which in one sense is shows that to me in one way, because I don't have those experiences and I don't want to have that experience, but I would like to have more. We're complex human beings, and our emotions and our intellect are all together. So you can't just be one or the other. But the danger when we fall out of keeping God's form is that by nature, we as soon as we start adding things, even if our initial we do love God, there's part of us that starts to focus on ourselves. And the opposite is true too. When you see people are more into the form than even anything else, it's a balance.
Right.
You see people who even with keeping the Shabbat
Mm.
are become so legalistic that I don't even know if they know why they're doing it, you know?
Mhm.
So it's a balance. But um, I was going to say something else. It
But
just, yeah, so,
on that note, I sometimes experience that even today, like when I go and I sing for somebody who has Alzheimer's, and I feel that somehow I'm reaching them, and I get this sensation that's so awesome. It feels like, the I'm so spiritual. God is moving in
right,
me and
right.
reaching them, and I come and I leave and I'm flying. I'm flying, and I come home and then I get into an argument with my daughter. Like, how come they don't see who I am? I'm this holy person who's reaching the Alzheimer's people. Honestly,
But
every
that's why,
moment. Yeah.
within those parameters, God does unite the emotionally. Well, like when you say you get up with joy and you thank God,
Yeah.
that's from God. It's not like we're not Baptists that can't show they err on the other side. But
Yes.
it's within certain form because of who we are. And we could we can just so easy to fall off balance. Even we have to look at ourselves, but we can't. My tendency is to always, look at you, Miriam. You only care about yourself and everything. Even, doing things for Mildred, like, oh, look what Miriam's doing. That's why I don't want to be praised anymore,
Right.
because it's not about, but yet I have to be merciful to myself too.
Yeah.
I can't, I just finally, it's funny, I had another little click and
Yeah.
it's lifted so much off of me. It was like, I just told God, I said, I cannot control how I experience things. I can control what I do, and I and I just felt something lift. You know, it's an honor to be able to help Mildred, and
Yeah.
there's no more. I'm not going to analyze whether part of it is what you know,
Right.
because I don't want to be praised for it more than necessary. I'll just okay, thank you, and that's all.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm just that I can't do more or less than like in
Right.
terms of what goes on inside me. But even God is changing that. It's okay. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to explain it, but
I understand.
God is the one. Form is really important in honestly in everything. But I was thinking about the fire striking as
Nadab
Nadab.
and Abihu.
Yeah, yeah. Part of me Listen, part of me thinks that really it wasn't what it didn't. It's not that God said you're not following the rules and off with your head. I
No.
believe something in being human, something inside of them had to involve some sort of turning to themselves and pride, that God's rules are not enough. We're going to add some more because I don't think God is so merciless that I don't think it was. I really think there was something about what they were doing was adding a little bit more to and then I was thinking of when Uzzah touched the thing. I mean, it doesn't say what's going on, and it doesn't say what's going on in his heart. I'm not saying he didn't love God. I think he did, but it wasn't. If it were just a reflexive action, I personally don't believe God would strike him dead. I think
Yeah,
that,
but it was more for David because David knew. You see, the king was supposed to read the Torah, and David would know as the king that there was only one way, that only the certain group of the Kohanim, the Kohathites, I think it was, had the right to move the ark. He was wrong. King David was wrong, which was why he was ended up being so angry. He caused the death of Uzzah.
no,
Wasn't Uzzah's fault. They needed to know that what they were doing, the whole thing was outside the bounds of what God had created. These were the formative years. The time of Nadab and Abihu was the formative years of the people of Israel. And in those early years is when you don't hear that happening all the time, like every single time it
no,
happened.
right, right,
It
right.
was just God was giving us like it's like you shall not commit premeditated murder. That was and those in those days, the punishment was harder. There are people today who may get very sick and don't know why they're sick, but because they're being disobedient and they may not even know why. Whose fault is that? Our spiritual leaders, the leaders of our community. We're supposed to be helping the people in the community to know what is right to do and what is wrong to do. And
Yeah,
so
but I
that's
said,
why to those who much is given, much is required. And Yeshua said, yeah, I haven't come to destroy the Torah, I've come to expand upon it.
yeah,
And that's what some of the things that Mauricio was speaking about. So it's a constant walk with God, constant learning, constant pushing, our boundaries, and some things are easy and some things are just very difficult for us, but we keep going.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I'm very, very tired. I can feel I'm fighting something. So I'm just going to go to bed and rest. But I'm
Okay.
so grateful that I was able to read the message without having choked.
Yeah.
Honestly, I couldn't do it last night. It's a miracle. But
God.
I also had a lot of stress this week. I didn't realize just how much it affected me finding Mildred like that on the floor. It was very I may not show emotion, but I certainly feel it, and it comes
I
out a
think
different
things
way.
like that, like, the whole idea of PTSD is not what we think.
No,
We have in our lives, like I know that I have a lot of PTSD. I've done a lot of research on it. There's no doubt. But even a thing like finding Mildred on the floor
yeah.
is very shocking.
And not only that, it was the first thing was blame. Why didn't I take her earlier to have her blood tests? Why didn't I call? Why didn't I go yesterday? Why while I was sitting here and it was Shabbat, it was the Pesach. But I then I said, okay, well, she has a cold and I sing for the elderly. I cannot go, but I could have worn a mask. I could have worn gloves. So there was a lot of blame also that I was putting on myself because I take responsibility for her. And so that I had to really go through that. So anyway, today I'm so grateful, Miriam, and I'm grateful for you, for and for the CLSC and for everything that's happened. And I see how when we fail, God is in control.
Yeah.
Really, God is in control, and that's the bottom line in absolutely everything that we do. We will never be perfect. We will continue to fail each and every day, but it's also what keeps us humble.
I think the motivation, that's what really clicking inside me. And I know God's honoring it because something's changing. And I think the motivation to want to follow God, that bottom line motivation is
Yeah.
more important than all the things we may not feel or may feel too much,
Right.
blah, 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 blah,
The
blah.
intentions of our heart.
It really is that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really think I don't know, even with Uzzah, even though, yes, it was King David's fault, but we are each responsible before God.
Yeah.
So I don't know what went on in Uzzah's heart. I don't know if he was a bit of maybe, oh, I'm important.
Well, because God is raising us from the dead, you will have the chance to talk to him one day, and he will tell you exactly what he
I'm
felt.
just saying, yeah, I know. I'm just saying, I think that God measures our heart, obviously. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, I am going to say good day.
Before you go to bed,
Yeah.
because presume, is Tammy okay, or how's she feel? I presume tomorrow is not going to
I
happen.
prefer not to talk about this here on this program.
Everyone needs to know it's of vital importance.
Exactly. We will
Okay.
talk about it later.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Boundaries, some boundaries. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye and we can talk later.
Okay.
And you'll let me
Shabbat
know
shalom.
whether or not.
You hear me?
I hear you, Baruch. There you are.
If I go downstairs and try out the thing there, and you leave it on where it is now, and just see if it connects from there. Because I'm
You,
up in my room now.
you're not in your room, or you are in your room?
I'm in my room now.
Yeah.
If I
All
go down
right.
to those machines, for the
Well,
in the thing
I'm gonna
there,
be closing down, Brian, because we can do it another time. Okay, so you can go down, and I can't personally do it because, to tell you the truth, I'm very tired. You're welcome, Moshe from Uganda. Say hello to everybody. Shabbat shalom to
Shabbat
you.
shalom,
Well, for
Moshe.
you, it's Shavua Tov. You're at 7 hours ahead of us. So God bless you, and I wish you all a Shabbat shalom.